Good morning, everyone. It's already April. It's amazing, time flies so fast. And we'll have a summer practice period from next week. I mean, from tomorrow. That means this is already in summer. Anyway, I continue to talk on this text, Opening the Hand of Thought. If you have this book, page 148, hopefully I want to talk 4 paragraphs. Let me read paragraph by paragraph, the second paragraph of page 148. At the same time, we should be careful of a potential trap in this attitude. When people hear that they shouldn't practice for the sake of Dharma, for the sake of human emotions or worldly ideas, sometimes they try to separate Buddha Dharma from these things completely, and they fence off a small area of existence as Buddha Dharma. For example, as a part of one of the esoteric practices of the Shingon school, a special place is marked off and various items are displayed on a special altar for making burnt offerings. They think of these as the only holy places of the Buddha Dharma. There are others who set aside some mountains as holy and prohibit women because women are somehow considered impure. But this is just human discrimination. This kind of attitude is completely different from the expressed in the expansive sky does not obstruct the floating white clouds. This chapter 8 of this book, entitled The Way Seeker, people who seek the way or awakening, is the transcription, based on the transcription of Okumura Roshi's last lecture at Antaiji. The day after he gave this lecture, he left Antaiji. And I was 26, but still I remember the voice he gave this talk. So this is important teaching to me. Anyway, in this lecture, he talks about 7 points he had kept in his mind while he was about of Antaiji to transmit the Dharma. And I'm still talking about the first one. There are 6 more points. The first point he's talking is study and practice the Buddha Dharma only for the sake of the Buddha Dharma, not for the sake of emotions or worldly ideas. As I said before, this is a saying by Dogen Zenji. You can find this saying in Zuimonki. So Dogen said, we should study and practice Buddha Dharma only for the sake of the Buddha Dharma, not for our human emotions or human sentiment or worldly ideas. Human sentiment is like I like this or I hate that, or I become better by practicing Zazen. That kind of goal-oriented to gain something beneficial to me. And worldly affairs means if we practice Zazen and become, for example, become a good teacher, then he could be in the time of Dogen, that is 13th century. The Buddhist monks, if they became a famous, well-known teacher, they could be a teacher of the emperor or aristocrat. So they are respected by all people in the society. So in a sense, to study and practice Buddha Dharma, in a sense, to climb the social ladder, to go upper side in the society. And Uchiyama Roshi is saying this is really important point in our practice. Practice for the sake of Buddha Dharma, not for our wish, our desire, or based on the faith, social idea. And the next, the last paragraph I talked was the conclusion. That is, in the final two sentences in the previous paragraph is, we shouldn't respect the Buddha Dharma of letting go of thought as being, I'm sorry, not shouldn't, but we should respect the Buddha Dharma of letting go of thought. This is our Zazen as being most valuable. So our Zazen practice in which we let go of our thought and delusive desires, that is most valuable. So it is important not to practice for the sake of sentimental emotions or worldly ideas. So this is a conclusion why and what is Buddha Dharma and how we practice and why this is important. And from this paragraph, he talks about even we understand and we try to practice with this attitude, there is a trap. So he thinks if we don't correctly understand and actually do it, then we may have another problem. That is he called a trap. Let me read the first paragraph, second one. At the same time, we should be careful of a potential trap in this attitude. That means when people hear that they shouldn't practice for the sake of human emotions or worldly ideas, sometimes they try to separate Buddha Dharma from these things completely, and they fence off a small area of existence as Buddha Dharma. He's talking about, the Buddha Dharma as a expansive sky doesn't disturb or obstruct white clouds floating. And we are living underneath the clouds. And what he meant is this is the area of our thinking, discrimination, and make choice and pursue something. But he said our life is much larger. And our Zazen is letting go of these white clouds coming and going. because we cannot control the crowds. We cannot, chase the crowds out. So, because we are underneath the crowds. So we have to live with this crowd, that means thinking and discrimination. But we need to understand this is much small, very small part of this network of interdependent origination. We are actually, our life is actually much larger than the area or space underneath the clouds. So by letting go of thought or opening the hand of thought, we become one with this entire interconnectedness. And when we understand this, means now I'm talking about this teaching. When I talk this teaching, these are already a concept. I'm using words and thinking, and I try to share my understanding to others. And when we read or hear this kind of teaching, our understanding is within this. We think, this, our life is much larger than we think. And we are thinking, and this is not good. So we have to letting go of thought. That is our thinking within our mind. And often or sometimes we think within our thinking. There are two sides. One is thinking or discrimination, and another is beyond the thinking. In this case, beyond the thinking become a concept within our mind. And we think this is better than that one. So we have to ignore or abandon thinking. And we should be one with non-thinking or beyond the thinking. And that is happening within our thinking. If we think in this way, we think this is good, this is not good. And when we apply this teaching to other people or to human society, we think some part of world is holy and sacred and beyond thinking, but other part is not. So we make a kind of a clear distinction, and we think this is holy or sacred, therefore this is more important than this one. And this is happening within our mind. And Uchiyama Roshi talks about examples in Japanese Buddhism. So again, even though we are talking about this beyond discrimination, still this is happening within discrimination. This is a really important point. But when we study and think, that is actually happening in our mind. For example, as part of one of the esoteric practices of the Shingon school. Shingon school is one of the Japanese Buddhist school, one of the largest Buddhist schools. It is called esoteric Buddhism, or Vajrayana Buddhism is a kind of esoteric. And this was founded by a great teacher, great master, Kukai. And when their practice, well, I don't have much time to talk about their practice. Anyway, in their practice, they separate certain small area as a sacred place. And all rest of the world is not sacred. And within this particular area, there are some kind of spiritual or magical power. So they practice something like goma. Goma is one of their practice, making fire, and offer the chips of some kind of incense wood, and pray. That is the way, according to Shingon teaching. If the person sit in certain posture and chant certain mantra, and in mind they become one with this spiritual power, then whatever the person wish is fulfilled. That kind of teaching. And another example Uchiyama Roshi mentioned is so-called in Japanese Nyonin Kinsei. Nyonin means women, and Kinsei is prohibition. So in certain mountains, sacred mountains, like not today, but in Dogen's times, mountains such as Mount Hiei or Mount Koya are considered as a sacred mountain, so woman couldn't enter. This is very kind of a common practice, but in Shobo Genzo, Raihai Tokuzui, Tokuzui, Raihai is making prostrations, and Toku is attain or gain, and Zui is marrow. Making prostration and receiving or attaining the marrow. This expression refers to transmission between Bodhidharma and second ancestor of Chinese Zen, Hyuike or Eka. Again, I cannot much time to talk about this story. Anyway, when the second ancestor received the transmission, Hyuike, the second ancestor, didn't say anything, but only walked in front of his teacher and made prostration and returned to his seat. So that means Dharma was transmitted without thinking, without language. That is the idea. And Dogen Zenji, right, once fascicle of Shobo Genzo entitled Raihai Tokuzui. And in this fascicle, I don't have time, again, I don't have time to talk, but Dogen Zenji strongly criticized this kind of practice. The kind of a common idea in Asia at that time was somehow women are not pure. If women came in, the place become impure. And Dogen didn't like that idea. So that is what Uchiyama Roshi is talking. When we think about this way, we want to make a distinction between holy or sacred and mundane, and we make discrimination. And if we do such a thing, this is not the true Dharma. That is all pervading. True Dharma is not what we think, but how we are. That is the point. That is why we have to practice. What we think, the true reality is beyond our thinking. Within our thinking is not a good practice. It's not. So we actually sit and letting go of thought. This is the actual thing. But thinking, true reality is beyond our thinking, is not really beyond thinking. But we often do. So this kind of attitude, those two are kind of example, but even we let go of these examples, we actually do the same things in our mind. We make somehow create a separation between something beyond thinking and something thinking, and this is better than that. That is thinking, actually. He said, this kind of attitude is completely different from that expressed in the expansive sky does not obstruct the floating white clouds. So within our thinking, we always make distinction, make discrimination, and we think this is better than that, or I like this, I don't like that. But that is not, this Buddha Dharma. So we have to just study and practice Buddha Dharma for the sake of the Buddha Dharma. Just be there. But still, this expansive sky does not obstruct the white clouds, means we don't kill that thinking. Thoughts are always coming and going within our zazen, but we don't chase after thinking or escape from thinking. We just be there, sit, and just let them come freely and let them go freely. But at least during zazen, we don't take any actions based on those delusive thinking. Most of thinking is delusive, but some thought might be correct as a theory, as a Buddhist doctrine, but that is not the reality. That is still thinking. So we have to let go. So we are not take action based on this discrimination within our thinking. And yet we need to fight against it. We don't fight against them. Some more, or we have to be compassionate to those. Those are like children. We always want to what we want. And we don't see our life is together with all beings. To fulfill my desire is only thing I want. That is a childish attitude toward life. But as Dogen then said in Tenzo Kyokun, as a matured or nurturing mind, we can find a joy to taking care of others. That is a difference. But still we often do this kind of thing and try to, we can see what other people do more than what I do. So we criticize others, they are wrong. But we are compassionate to ourselves. That is the same problem. So next paragraph is, in more complicated cases, people insist on Buddha Dharma as being something special in order to boost their own egos. There are a lot of teachers who talk of Buddha Dharma only for the sake of Buddha Dharma, as a kind of smoke screen, behind which they are secretly just trying to get their own way. This point requires a great deal of caution. The basis of Buddha Dharma is the expansive sky does not obstruct the floating white clouds. We must neither oppose nor deny the existence of human emotion and worldly ideas. So we should not make separation between something sacred and something mundane, or discrimination and beyond discrimination. And if we think this is better than that, and when we see other people, we can see, what they are doing is based on their personal desire. And we criticize those people. And Uchiyama Roshi is saying, even some Buddhist teachers do the same thing. They talk about the, Buddhist teachings and request others to follow this teaching. And that is why he called this a kind of trap. By teaching this, the teacher requests their student or other people follow his way of doing things. That means what he teaches them is Buddhism. Therefore, those students need to follow me. This is a trap. And it's difficult to avoid as a teacher that if people don't follow me, then they are bad, or they are mistaken, they are self-centered, because I'm teaching genuine Buddhist teachings, Buddha Dharma. So our teachers sometimes make criticism or look down, or even scold their student if they do something not in accordance with what the teacher taught those people. And he said that, and Uchiyama Roshi said that is not permissible. So the teacher needs to practice this, practice Buddha Dharma only for the sake of Buddha Dharma to the teacher him or herself. This is not something the teacher can request others to do and make judgment. Because the teacher trying to control things happening underneath the clouds. Then next paragraph. What this boils down to is the importance of following the Buddha Dharma only for the sake of Buddha Dharma. We practitioners must maintain an attitude of practicing Buddha Dharma only for the sake of Buddha Dharma, without justifying it by human emotions and worldly ideas. No one can stop people from saying you did such and such contrary to Buddha Dharma for the sake of Buddha Dharma, but it is not a standard for judging people. Quite a few priests go astray on this point, spouting fancy words for the sake of their own cravings. For example, they talk about generosity or the perfection of giving, that is, in Sanskrit, Dharma Paramita, as being the chief value, and tell you how you should practice it. Then they pocket your money for themselves. This is inexcusable. We can't demand that others practice generosity without practicing it ourselves. So what he's saying is we should practice, in this case, generosity or dana paramita only by ourselves. If we, request other people, if we teach other people that generosity or dana paramita is most important. Actually, this is most important practice as a bodhisattva. This is the first one of the 6 paramita. So by saying dana paramita is most important, there's no mistake. But if within our mind, if something small is twisted, then by teaching this, we request other people to make donation. And teacher doesn't say, make donation to me, but make donation for the sake of Dharma, or for the sake of the Sangha, or the temple. But finally, the donation benefit this person. This is very subtle point. So we cannot judge if the person is actually doing that. So we have to be careful only to ourselves. Otherwise, we teach the Buddha Dharma and take advantage that teaching to fulfill this person's desire. So this is really subtle point. So, and what Uchiyama Roshi is saying is Buddha Dharma is, he said it's not he said Buddha Dharma is not like a national law. National law is they're making rules, and if anyone violate this rule, we can judge those people for the violating actions. But Buddha Dharma cannot be or should not be used in that way to judge others. But Buddha Dharma is only should be applied only for this person. If we don't make donation or practice not only donation of material things, but even talking about Dharma, teaching Dharma is a donation or dana. But if I have even a little bit desire or hope that if I teach in this way, people like me and people respect me and people make donation to me. If even little bit we have such a desire deep in our mind, we don't, express that desire. That desire is always hidden in the deep in our mind. But if we have such a thing, such a small twist, then my teaching about generosity or dana is for the sake of benefiting this person. So it's really difficult to find such a deep and tiny twist. Still, therefore, we have to be careful only to ourselves. So practice Buddha Dharma for the sake of Buddha Dharma cannot be like a national law to judge others. But we have to be always clear about what is happening in our mind. To do so, I think, Zazen and letting go of thought is very helpful. When we sit and letting go of thought, we cannot choose what kind of thought good for me. So, we cannot hide things happening in our mind. So we can see, if there is a tiny dust in our mind, we can see that dust. If we practice sincerely, sitting practice, Zazen practice. So that is another important point of opening the hand of thought. By letting go of thought, somehow all different kind of thought happening in our mind somehow come up. And we just let them come and let them go. So we cannot hide anything from happening within ourselves. That is why Uchiyama Roshi said, our Zazen is a practice of repentance. Our Zazen, he said, our practice, one sitting, practice of sitting is, he said, is other meanings. Two practices. Two practices is practice of vow and practice of repentance. As a practice of vow, this sitting is not being caught up in our delusive thinking. That is one meaning of letting go of thought. And another meaning is this sitting is itself repentance. That means we can see even a tiny dust in our mind. I think Shohaku Roshi said, when we sit, we can clearly see we are much deluded. This is a very important point. So seeing we are deluded is very important point of our Zazen practice. That is a wisdom. And we try not to express that twisted desire in action when we practice and we do things with other people. We cannot be careful if we don't know such a thing is in our mind. So Zazen practice as a repentance is really important part of our practice. And after that, Uchiyama Roshi said, three minds. Mind or big mind or daishin, magnanimous mind, and nurturing or parental mind, and joyful mind. Based on our Zazen of vow and repentance, we try to big mind or magnanimous mind is really opening the hand of thought and become free from discrimination. And nurturing mind is to take care of others within this network. And by taking care of others, we find a joy. We can share the joy with other people. So that is a kind of a core teaching of Dogen Zenji and, to me, Uchiyama Roshi. So in the last sentence of this paragraph, he said, we cannot demand that other practice, we cannot demand that others practice generosity without practicing it ourselves. So we have to practice by ourselves. And final paragraph for today. The most important point in Buddhism is that each of us practice it ourselves. We must apply every teaching and every practice to ourselves. In understanding Buddha Dharma for the sake of Buddha Dharma, this attitude is essential. So we should teach, we should try to practice, for example, generosity or offerings to ourselves. And we should not use this teaching to judge others. So that is Uchiyama Roshi's kind of, according to Uchiyama Roshi, this is a kind of a trap. When we study this kind of teaching and only understand within our thinking mind, then we use this structure of Buddhist teaching as based on our discrimination, like and dislike, good and bad, even the sacred and mundane. So he basically here he's saying we should not use this teaching to as a kind of a measurement or ruler to judge other people's activities, but we should apply only to ourselves. This is a teaching I heard when I was 26. I'm trying to practice based on this teaching. So even after I established Sanshinji, I try not to make rules, to keep the rules in minimum numbers. So I think people think, our practice at Sanshinji is a kind of chaotic. There's no structure. And that is a kind of what I did intentionally. When there are rules, there is a good kind of a ruler to judge other people and start to think how they are behaving. But if there's no rules, we have to think actually what is happening, why this person did this and that, or how this person, how I behave, without relying on this kind of a yardstick. Anyway, and another thing I found while I have been practicing with this teaching, here Uchiyama Roshi talking about we should not use this teaching to judge others. But if we can do the same thing to ourselves, to judge ourselves. Of course, we apply only this teaching only to ourselves. This is Zen teaching of Homeless Kodo. And Shohaku Roshi said, if we want to check, page 120. Shohaku Roshi said, we are watched by the Zen, scolded by the Zen, obstructed by the Zen, dragged around by the Zen, and spend our lives in tears. This is the happiest life, isn't it? Do you agree with this? I mean, the Zen is really a kind of a strict teacher. We cannot hide ourselves. The next thing Uchiyama Roshi is talking about is the Zen is our truest and most venerable teacher. The Zen is a true teacher, and yet the Zen is very strict teacher. If teacher is other people, other person, we can kind of hide what is really happening within our mind. But when we consider our Zen is our teacher, we cannot tell a lie. We cannot hide anything. So we have to always kind of how can I say, humble toward this teacher, because he knows everything. So this is important to see our Zen as our teacher. But if we think same way, then there is a trap. That means if we think in this way, Zen is a teacher, good teacher, and our thinking mind or our desire is bad thing. And we think this is a good part of our life and this is not good part. So we have to eliminate this part and we should live based on that part. This is still our discrimination. If we practice Zen with this attitude, based on our idea of thinking and beyond thinking, then our practice become fighting toward ourselves. I didn't like this part of me, and yet I cannot go that part. I cannot live beyond thinking or without discrimination or with a compassionate mind with other people. Then we hate ourselves. We became disappointed about this person, and we hate this person's fiber aggregate. And we eventually stop practicing. So we need to accept this part of our self too. That is what the expansive sky, great sky, doesn't obstruct white clouds coming and going. So even we need to be compassionate even to that kind of not so a clean part of ourselves. We need to be compassionate to that thing, but we need to try not to be pulled by that part of ourselves, not express that part within our actions toward other people. Then we create samsara within our life. So this is really kind of a complicated, not like a good and bad thing, not kind of a two-sided, like mundane and holy, or sacred and worldly. So we need to be really careful and think deeply and always check what is happening within our mind. And to do so, our Zazen practice is really helpful. Even though psychology says Zazen is good for nothing, but that means Zazen is good for nothing for my delusive desire. Zazen cannot be a method or a means to fulfill my desire. And yet, Zazen can be really a true and good teacher and very strict teacher, because we cannot hide anything. So in order to understand and practice this teaching, somehow we have to think thoroughly, not kind of a dualistic way, good, bad, like, dislike. Then I like this part, I don't like that part, and we start to fight against ourselves. And as I often talk, when I talk about Buddha's enlightenment. Buddha conquered Mara when he attained enlightenment, and Buddha himself said the Mara is our 5 skandhas. When we cling to our own 5 skandhas, then these 5 skandhas become Mara. And after he attained awakening, he became free from Mara. But that doesn't mean he killed his 5 skandhas. But his 5 skandhas are transformed from Mara to Buddha's body and mind. So this is really a subtle point. So we have to leave our self-centered way of thinking, even we understand what this means. But to do so, we need to be compassionate to our delusive idea also. Otherwise, our delusive idea become like a baby crying, become violent. Well, I think that is what I have to say this morning. I think this is the last Dharma talk before my stepping down, I think. I thought I could finish this text before my retirement, but somehow now I'm clear I cannot. So after June, I continue to talk on this text, at least until I complete this text. So there's no retirement. This is my disappointment. Well, any question or comments, please?
I have so many questions.
I'm sorry.
No, you said so many helpful things today. I need to go away and think about it for a while. But for now, I just want to follow up and ask about this approach about not having rules. Because within Sanchen style, we've been talking about this as a part of non-reliance, something called non-reliance, right? So there's nothing that's dragging us through our practice. We're relying only on bodhicitta to get us onto the cushion and to do our practice, and we're not relying on a curriculum or what my teacher thinks of me or all of those sort of human emotions and worldly ideas, right? So on the one hand, it makes a lot of sense. We don't set rules because, I mean, it's really interesting to consider we don't set the rules so that we are required to pay attention, to think for ourselves, to look at what's happening and to respond in a way which is not about small self, and to not rely on, oh, we're going to look at a checklist and, you know, when this happens, we do that. And all of that is wonderful teaching. It's really difficult and challenging and meaningful. And on the other hand, we have to run a community. And as you say, when you step into a community that appears not to have rules, your practice can feel chaotic.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering, in your observations over 20 years of using that approach, because it's unusual, I think, and maybe particularly in America, I don't know. What are your observations about how we balance these two things, where on the one hand, we really don't want to be doing people's practice for them by saying, here's your guidebook, and on the other hand, on a day-to-day basis, you know, we need, as you've said elsewhere, our practice is about how do we move through the world without hurting each other. How can we balance these two things in a kind of a meaningful way as we go forward from here? I realize that's a really big question, but there may be a few things that sort of come to your mind right away.
Well, it's really an important point.
Yeah, and very subtle. So I mean, I'm really glad you brought it up because it's really a subtle thing.
You know, that is a kind of a difference between Vinaya precept and Bodhisattva precept.
Yeah.
Vinaya precept is like a rules, you know, and people are judged if they did something violate with those precepts. And if their violation is most serious, they have to get out of the Sangha. They cannot become a monk anymore. To do so, you know, if you read the Vinaya text, you know, there are many precepts, many prohibitions. But each of those prohibitions has a long explanation why this precept was set up by the Buddha. And in each precept, all the words used in that precept is defined. And also there are some exceptional cases because monks are judged by this Vinaya precept. But for example, you know, in Vinaya precept, the precept of not killing is only human form of life. If we kill human form life, then the person should be judged. But in Bodhisattva precept, for example, in Bommokyo or Brahman, etc., Brahman, etc., it said, don't kill any form of life. You know, it's so different. If we receive the precept of not kill any form of life, how can we keep this precept? You know, not only human beings, not only animals, but even the plants and the vegetables are a form of life. So even if we don't eat meat, if we eat vegetables, then we kill. So if we try all killing, then we stop eating. We need to stop eating, and if so, we kill ourselves. This is another violation of that precept. So in a sense, this Bodhisattva precept is not possible to be kept. And that is strange. So when I talk about the precept, I say this Bodhisattva precept is not a rules. but a koan. That means we have to make choice. What we need to kill, and what kind of life we can avoid killing. And in each situation or each part of this world or each kind of culture, that limitation is different. So we have to see the reality, and we need to decide what kind of life we need to kill to keep ourselves alive in a healthy way, and what kind of life we can avoid to kill. So I think that is the difference between Vinaya and Bodhisattva precept. And so in us, somehow, if we think those Bodhisattva precepts are the rules to be in a Sangha and to use as kind of a ruler to judge people's behavior, then it's kind of a misuse of the precept. So if we make, the rules, we have to make the very much more clear definition of what this rule means. And if there are some exceptions, we have to mention these other exceptions. Sometimes in Buddhist Sangha, people think these 10 major precepts are kind of a best yardstick of our morality. But if we use these Bodhisattva precepts as yardstick, there is a confusion. So if we want to use, these precepts as a rules, we have to make what this means, very quiet, very precise. But still, I think it's better not to have too many rules. If we have, many rules, we kind of rely on the rules to judge other people and to judge ourselves. And we think there's no problem. But even if there are some activity looks like violation of the precept, there must be some deeper reason. There are many examples of such things, like one story, Dogen talks about was one priest or monk. Whenever he saw a deer, he hit the deer and chased after the deer. So other people, criticize this person's, kind of a cruelty toward the animals, the deer. But when the monk was asked why you do such a thing, the monk said, if I, how can I say, I can act with deer with kind attitude, that if we feed the deer, then the deer forget about how human beings are dangerous. So they become, how can I say, like a friend. They consider human beings like a friend, and if they meet some, not so kind person, the deer could be killed. That's why he tried not to be kind to the deer. So that is one of the examples. Dogen said the person's action and person's mind, the depth in mind might be different. So in each case we have to consider. But if we make a rule, that beard should be dealt with this way or that way, we don't need to think they are deep part of this person's mind. That can be another problem. So it's really difficult to find the balance. We need some rules, of course, but we also need to be free from those rules. I think Uchiyama said not about the rules, but about how to keep the Dharma wheel turning in this world. Dharma, he said, Dharma wheel is like a water wheel. If the water wheel is above the water, in this case, this water is a world, mundane world. If this Dharma wheel doesn't touch the world, and there's no way this wheel can turn. But if this wheel is sunk into the water, this doesn't turn neither. So we need to find the good position for this Dharma wheel turn in the best way. That means if we separate from the world, there's no way the Dharma wheel can be turned. But if we become really kind of a part of the world, and that is a problem of Japanese Buddhism. Japanese Buddhism and Japanese culture is almost the same thing. So people think Buddhism is a part of Japanese culture, and that is okay. But that is why not many people think Buddhism is something we have to study and practice because it's already in Japanese culture. That is another problem. So I think the rules might be the same thing. If these rules are separate from the reality of who we are, then rules don't mean anything. But if we think everything is okay, then that is a problem, another problem. So how can we find the best position to rules works and yet not, how can I say, not injure people. So there's no fixed answer. That is a problem. Is this the answer to your question? That
yes,
means
and
no answer.
Yes, and well, of course, this is my life for the next 13 years, so of course I'm working on this. So I have a quick follow-up for you. During the Ango, some of us are going to be studying a Heishingi. Do you have some advice for us? Because we can look at that, Chiji Shingi and some things, as a list of rules. Here's what we do when we meet a senior coming down the hall. We behave a certain way, and it seems very concrete. And of course, we don't, there's a lot of that we don't do here, and I'm not proposing that we start. But do you have some advice for us about our attitude when we're studying what Dogen had to say, which was sometimes very specific, about how to not just cling to those rules and say, well, Dogen says we should brush our teeth in a certain way or something. Soto no Gyoji says we should snap our fingers when we go to the toilet. You know, I mean, it would be easy to really cling to that. So do you have some thoughts for us about how we approach the way Dogen is suggesting that we practice without clinging too tightly to that?
I think Dogen wrote his answer to that question in Chidi Shingi. And he praised two Chinese Zen masters in Chidi Shingi. And both of them kind of violate the rules. The first one person is when he was Tenzo, he stole food from the storage and cooked and offered to the monks who were hungry. So he was punished, but Dogen Zenji very much praised this person's compassionate action, even though the person stole something that is clearly a violation. And another person was a manager of the water mill in that monastery. And, to refine the grains, and not only the grains produced in the monastery by monks, but also where in that mill, farmers also bring their harvest to be refined. And this is because this makes noise. This is separated from the main monastery. So when this person was working there, training monks had a doubt. This person kind of save money for himself, or drink sake, or have a good time with people in the village. I think the story was he didn't counter-argue to that kind of criticism against among the monks in the monastery. But somehow he intentionally bought sake, bought wine, and kind of had a good time with women, village women. So people thought, this person's way of work is really not good. So people reported to the abbot, and the abbot, of course, asked what's happening, and he was scolded, but he didn't counter-argue at all. But he showed the note in which how much work he did, and how much income, and how much expenditure. What do you call this account? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And when the abbot see that account, the abbot found he didn't do anything, how can I say, wrong. So he avoided arguing with those monks who had criticism. But probably he was sure if this was judged by the abbot know what is happening. The problem was the monks, those training monks, kind of jealousy. And so even this person, whose name was Ho-En, really violated the rules for buying meat and sake, and have a good time with village people. But still, Dogen Zenji praised this person, these two people, even though they violate the precept or rules. So Dogen Zenji was his rules are very precise. When he described how to use oryoki, his description is very precise. No way to misunderstand. It's very different from Shobo Genzo. When in Shobo Genzo he wrote two opposite things in one sentence. So we don't really understand what he's saying. We need deep thinking. But when he talks about the precept or rules in Eiheshingi, what he's writing was very precise and clear. So studying Eiheshingi itself, you can find the answer to that question. He was very precise, and it's important for him to keep the monastery in harmonious order. And to do so, sometimes in certain kind of extreme situation, it's kind of more healthy to violate some rules. So, we need a deep understanding of three mind, that is beyond discrimination, and serve others, help others, taking care of things, and having a joy. I think that is the basis to find the good position of Dharma wheel can turn, keep turning. Okay, so please study Eiheshingi precisely. Right after I established Sanshinji, when I started to practice with people here, first thing I gave lectures are Eiheshingi. And some person asked, there's no such, rules in this community, why we need to study Eiheshingi. And I said to that person, because there's no such rules, we need to study the rules and keep the rules in ourselves, not other rules to govern other people. So I think to study Eiheshingi is really important and meaningful. Okay, any question?
Well, thank you very much for this.
Oh.
I must ask your forgiveness. When in the ordainment ritual, there's a point in which you asked me 3 times, can these precepts be kept? And I'm sorry that I lied.
That's good. Any other comments or question? It's already 11:35. Is there any question?
Don't you ask one?
Please.
In Gakudo Yojinshu, there's this passage that Dogen writes about the student-teacher relationship being like shaping a piece of wood. And so, he says each piece of wood is different and it needs to be shaped in its own particular way. Maybe some piece of wood doesn't need much work, another piece of wood might need a lot of work. So how does that, I don't understand how that squares with this idea of a hands-off approach for everyone. Because it seems like some people need a lot of hands-on. And some people maybe don't need much hands-on. So I don't understand how Uchiyama Roshi suggests that we can have just the hands-off approach when Dogen it seems like he's saying the opposite.
That's a problem. I mean, at other larger monasteries, all people who want to practice in order to be a Soto-Zen priest come, and teachers have to teach and help them to be a good priest. So teacher need more kind of a skillful means. But Antaiji is a small temple, it's not a monastery. And only people who want to practice with Uchiyama Roshi and within his style would come. If other people come and they don't like his style of practice, that is just sitting, they don't come continuously. So Uchiyama Roshi doesn't need to have a kind of teaching method, or even, they don't like Zazen or they don't like Buddhism, still they need to become a Buddhist priest. So at larger monastery, to be a teacher, need to find many skills to deal with different people. But at Antaiji, Uchiyama Roshi is saying is, because they already have a bodhicitta. If they don't allow bodhicitta, they don't need to come. But at the larger official monastery, they need to come to become a temple priest. That is a difference, and that is why Uchiyama Roshi could be a teacher, even though he didn't teach in various different methods. And I thought Sanshinji is a kind of the same thing. This is not an official monastery to, educate all different kind of people coming here to be priest for different reasons. So, in a sense, for some people, I was not a good teacher. But I think for those people, there are many other teachers or other places to practice. So teacher and student relation in a kind of a small place where people come to practice this particular teacher. And the much larger kind of educational, facilities like official monk, official Sodo monastery. Teachers need a more kind of teaching method to deal with different kind of people who have different motivation to come. Does this make sense?
Thank you.
So one teacher cannot be good for all different people. That's why, in ancient China, monks had to travel to find a most suitable teacher. Okay? Okay.
Roshi,
Yes.
may I ask something?
Yes.
I'm in San Francisco. Hello. There has been an incident in my life that has created mind waves. And I would like to know how this, to give me an idea how this should be handled. I'm a very devoted teacher, and somebody who is rather jealous has deeply criticized me as a teacher. It is upsetting to me to be called out unfairly, and I don't know how to deal with the situation. Is there an appropriate response, or do I just, is it one of those things to just keep letting go of?
I cannot tell you because I don't know your actual situation, but as my personal attitude against that kind of situation is keep silent and do what I need to do
Okay, thank you.
without too much attention to other people's opinion about what I'm doing. In a sense, that is why I came to Bloomington. I escaped from California. No one complain about, no one has criticism against what I'm doing. Okay, I'm sorry, this is not the answer to your question, but I don't have any good answer to your question. But
No.
each person needs to react or deal with that kind of situation without compassion and patience. Okay?
Yes,
Thank you.
this is an answer to my question.
Okay, thank you. Good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else online that would like to make a comment or have questions?
Okay.
Jigen, did you have something?
Any?
Somebody else here?